Yeah, we had you a few years ago talking about the Lion Air crashes, and it seems like those problems are still something that we're talking about here today. What do you make of this recent incident, for one? Was this sort of a manufacturing glitch, something that was oversight, or is there a real design problem here?
Morning, Yvonne. Thanks for having me. I think the Alaska Air wind door blowout, something like that usually occurs when you have aging aircraft or an aircraft that's been flying for 30 years. But to have a brand new 9-month-old aircraft blow out a door means clearly a major design flaw, and Boeing needs to get down, rip that aircraft apart, go back to see what's breaking, fix it. The problem with Boeing is that it's pretty much spit and shine. It's like somebody who just had a heart attack, but instead of giving him bypass surgery, you put a new hairstyle on him and give him a manicure and send him home. Okay, so that approach is not going to work anymore, because you're going to end up killing a lot of people. In the past, we've seen unheard of incidents and events with Boeing, from the rudder issue, the MCAS. There's now issues with the cockpit window. So, this is going to get worse. And if Boeing does not pull its socks up and, start fixing that aircraft, sadly, we're going to see another catastrophic disaster in Asia.
Okay, well, we look at this, Mark, and, many people trace this really back to that 1997 merger with McDonnell Douglas, and said, ever since they moved to Chicago, they've not been in touch with their engineers. Is that kind of like a bizarre thing to happen when you're calling the manufacturing of the fuselage as a non-core activity for an aircraft maker? Does that go down to essentially the nub of the problem, that this is now a company which is looking at the bottom line and not looking at the engineering in no way, shape or form as closely as they should?
Rishat, you're spot on. I think the problem with Boeing is that they refuse, and they just do not want to innovate. We had three good aircraft makers: McDonnell Douglas, Airbus, and Boeing, and that created better technology, competition, encouraged newer technology to be brought in. But after you got rid of McDonnell Douglas, which I think we all know in the industry was clearly a far better aircraft manufacturer than Boeing, Boeing just said, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. It's there. I'm just going to keep upgrading it and sending it out. But the bigger concern here is, Boeing's approach to selling an aircraft is like, a software company releasing a beta release of a software version that, we'll fix it when the problems just keep coming and we come up with an update and a patch. That's not going to work. Boeing cannot afford to release an aircraft that is not being perfectly designed, manufactured, and it can't be by trial and error, because, Asia is growing at a ridiculously rapid pace. We're going to see at least 3,000 more aircraft coming over to, markets like Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. Of course, Cathay Pacific is got its own issues in, Indonesia, India. And we're going to need reliable aircraft, because it's either we fly more with less or fly less with more. And I think clearly we know what the economics are going to look like for that. We need aircraft and we need fast, but we need reliable, safe, and proven aircraft, not something that's going to keep breaking and end up killing a whole lot of people.
Mark, what do you suspect the short-term revenue hit will be to the company? That's one part of the question. The second part is, it seems, based on your comments, that there needs to be a deeper fix, systemic fix to really how they do things. What do you think the cost implication will be for Boeing if they do need to sort out all these underlying issues?
David, we're going to, if the regulator is going to step in and say, I'm not going to accept this anymore, and we're going to have to ground every 737 MAX, that's everywhere in the world, we're seeing billions, possibly at least 10 or $20 billion of revenue just for grounding for 3 months, because that's going to put your entire financial projection. Asia is just about getting out of the COVID madness and barely licking its wounds from financial losses that they incurred to 2020 to 2023, and this when you need that aircraft and when you need to fly it, guess what? For nothing that you've done, you're going to have to ground it again, and this is going to make it so insanely painful. And no bank is going to step up to the plate and give you sign a blank check and give you money. That's not going to happen. He's going to want guarantees and assurances. Yeah, Yvonne, go ahead.
Are there other alternatives, though? I'm just wondering because, I mean, is the industry going to start avoiding these MAX jets? But then I take a look at Airbus. It's hard to be dependent on them either because their A320s are basically sold out to the 2030s.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We're caught between a rock and a very hard place. The problem with the Airbus A320neo is got to the Pratt & Whitney engine, and I know we've spoken about it before as well. But now there's a solution for that. CFM and and GE have come up, and they're willing to offer a aftermarket replacement on that. But again, it's going to be insane for Airbus to triple or quadruple its production to take on the demand from 737 MAX switches. What I fear right now, Yvonne, is that the industry might go back to pre-15, 20-year-old aircraft from the market, or just pull out of these aircraft from the desert and fly them again. And this is something is a pretty dark scenario because while we're supposed to be operating new aircraft, because new aircraft are failing, guess what? The aircraft that was made 40 years ago is now more reliable than what we have today. So what does an airline do? He's pretty much painted himself into a corner. So and I would dread to see the day when regulators start passing new laws by stating, you can fly a 30-year-old aircraft as long as you've done the major maintenance. I hope we don't see that day.
Mark, how far behind is COMAC? For airlines, can they look at a third option in COMAC?
Well, COMAC is an outstanding aircraft, okay? The 919, those are brilliant aircraft. But the problem is that you've got so much of U.S. European lobby that COMAC is never going to get a decent foothold in the market. Not just COMAC, the ARJ made out of China, right? Even the IL-96. Have you ever heard of these aircraft breaking? They've been flying relentlessly. They're just more and more reliable. And that's because Asia learned from Europe's mistakes, learned from what Boeing did wrong, and came up with a pretty good aircraft. And in my personal view, I would like to see more COMAC aircraft, come up and step up to the plate and fill up some of Airbus and Boeing's shoes. But given the current market dynamics, given this whole, push for European and U.S. and embargoes and political elements which are there, and sadly, which is reality.
Quick word on Cathay. They cut 200 flights since Christmas Eve. We're looking at them still cancelling flights, but in anticipation for them to be fully staffed for the Lunar New Year. And the union there are calling for a full investigation. It seems a bit cynical to, actually pay Paul to Peter, if you will.
Yeah, the problem with Cathay is that, they want to get out of their current phase and grow in the fastest way possible. And they're stuck and caught up because they've got two issues. They've got a people issue, they've got a fleet issue. The fleet issue has also got to do with trying to get new aircraft as soon as possible, and they've got an old fleet reliability issue, which, aircraft over 30 years start having issues and problems and whatever it is. So Cathay needs to really get down to the drawing board, figure what they want to do in terms of their future growth opportunity, and chalk out a plan now and follow it right down to the T, because you're going to end up losing market share. It's not about flight cancellations. Yes, flight cancellations are temporary, and you can borrow an aircraft from your alliance partner and start flying it. That's all right. But the long-term outlook looks bleak and pretty rough if you're not going to fix it now. And it's not that Cathay isn't financially stable. They're financially stable. They just got to put their thoughts and minds and get their house in order.
Boeing's in a little bit of a holding pattern today. We are